vous êtes les bienvenus dans ce bel palais donc de l'époque du Bey et qui est actuellement le siège de l'Académie tunisienne des sciences, des lettres et des arts. Donc, on est réunis aujourd'hui pour la réunion annuelle du Comité international des villes et des villages historiques. En même temps, cette manifestation, elle rentre dans le cadre de la célébration de Tunis comme ville de capitale islamique, mais essentiellement, moi je dédie cette rencontre, cette manifestation à la célébration du 40e anniversaire du classement du site de Carthage dans lequel on est sur la liste donc, du patrimoine mondial et aussi le 40e anniversaire du classement de la Médina du Tunis qu'on visitera demain après-midi sur la liste donc, du patrimoine mondial. Parce que les deux sites de Carthage et de Tunis, ce sont les premiers sites qui ont été classés patrimoine mondial. En Tunisie, ils étaient classés ensemble dans le même dossier. Donc je ne vais pas m'étaler sur cette question parce qu'on aura deux présentations, l'une sur Carthage et l'autre sur la Médina du Tunis, et ça sera donc l'occasion de comprendre un peu la problématique qu'on essaie de poser au niveau de cette rencontre, qui parle donc en même temps donc, du label patrimoine mondial et son incidence sur la vie de ces sites. Donc, je vais m'arrêter là. Donc, je vais donner la parole à Monsieur Abdelmejid Charfi, qui est le président donc, de al-Hikma, donc de l'Académie tunisienne des sciences, des lettres et des arts, pour vous souhaiter la bienvenue. Ensuite, la parole, elle sera donnée à Monsieur Klaus-Peter Echtel, le président du Comité international des villes et des villages historiques. Merci.
حضرات السيدات والسادة، باسم المجمع التونسي للعلوم والآداب والفنون بيت الحكمة، يشرفني أن أرحب بكم في افتتاح هذا الملتقى الذي ينظمه قسم الفنون بالمجمع. وإن الموضوع الذي تم اختياره لهذا الملتقى هو موضوع يشغل بال العديد من المتساكنين، وبالخصوص هنا في قرطاج التي هي مصنفة من التراث العالمي من قبل اليونسكو، ولكنها تتعرض كما تعلمون لعديد التهديدات. ونفس الشيء بالنسبة إلى المشاكل التي تعترض المدن والقرى بفعل تطور التقنيات، تقنيات التواصل والنزوح السكاني واختيارات اقتصادية وسياسية معينة. فلا شك أن وضعية المدن والقرى في حاجة إلى التأمل، في حاجة إلى أن تدرس بصفة علمية وموضوعية. ولهذا فأنا سعيد بافتتاح هذا الملتقى باعتباره يتعلق بمشاكل حقيقية لا بمشاكل وهمية. وكذلك أهمية هذا الملتقى هي من قيمة المشاركين فيه، هؤلاء الذين أتونا من بلاد شقيقة وصديقة ومن مختلف القارات، من أفريقيا وآسيا وأوروبا وأمريكا. فيشرفني أن أرحب بكم جميعا في افتتاح هذا الملتقى. وأعتبر أن هذه الملتقيات ربما تكون الفائدة المرجوة منها لا فقط تبادل الخبرات، ولكن أيضا الخروج بعدد من التوصيات التي من شأن أصحاب القرار أن يأخذوا بها وأن يطبقوها حتى لا تبقى الأمور تسير بصفة عشوائية. لهذا فأجدد الترحيب بكم وأتمنى لأشغالكم كل التوفيق.
Donc, Monsieur Klaus-Peter Echter, please.
Dear President of the Tunisian Academy on Literature and Arts, dear Vice President or Deputy President of the Academy on Arts, dear Faika, Vice President of CV, thank you very much for this attractive invitation. And Faika, thank you for your so passionate, engaged, and successful work for organizing this conference. You had to work so hard, we appreciate this. Dear Sofia, immediate past president of CV, and dear Alvaro, honorary member, dear members of CV, dear Tunisian friends and colleagues, dear participants and guests. As president of CV ICOMOS, I like to heartily welcome you all to this annual meeting of CV here in Tunis. It is our first annual meeting in Africa, but we have been before in Tunis, invited by FICA from the 27th to 29th April 2017 in a meeting of our Mediterranean subcommittee. As you know, the International Committee on Historic Towns and Villages was established in 1982. The committee deals with questions relevant to the planning and management of historic towns and villages. ICOMOS adopted in 2011 the Valletta Principles for the Safeguarding and Management of Historic Cities, Towns and Urban Areas that have been elaborated by CV. They reflect the changes in historic towns and urban areas, and of course, the challenges. CV has done a lot in the field of safeguarding and management of historic cities, towns, and urban areas. In the study and research on issues pertaining to the protection of heritage, like abandonment, large works, tourism, sustainable development, climate change, in historic modern cities, villages, urban areas, and historical urban landscape. In the development of the work for ICOMOS for the contribution of culture and heritage in the sustainable development of cities. In the studies of repercussions of climate change on urban heritage. The committee recognizes the role of cultural heritage specifically and culture in general in sustainable development through the explicit inclusion of cultural heritage and cultural-related targets in the Sustainable Development Goals and the post-2015 Development Agenda of the UN and UN Habitat. In the advisory meeting of ICOMOS, that just took place in Marrakech, these aspects played an important role. Special focus and recognition should therefore further on be given to the positive contribution of heritage to regional and local sustainable development, but also to the intangible heritage, which is really important now, and to the connection of civil society with its heritage. An overview of practices concerning the recognition, mainstreaming, and effective contribution of cultural heritage within the broader sustainable development discourse and to achieve a coordinated and effective process of advocacy for the localization and monitoring of the SDGs and new urban agendas, focusing on the three actions area of advocacy, localizing the means of implementation, and monitoring is useful. So this is one important topic of our meeting. During the symposium, we will discuss also another topic, the UNESCO recommendation on historic urban landscape. The HUL, the HUL recommendation is an approach or tool and process for assisting in the management of cultural urban heritage, but not a category of place. How does the HUL approach respond to urgent contexts on climate change, population explosion around the world, especially in some continents, and better living standards? Does it examine the importance and benefits of appropriately integrated conservation, management, and planning strategies of historic urban areas into local development processes? My wish for this important conference is that we may have effective and fruitful results on the sustainability of historic cities and towns and on the implementation of the historic urban development recommendation. I am confident that this conference will have a great radiance, as this room is full of the most renowned and prominent experts on stage, in the panels, in the sessions, and in the audience. I'm looking forward to meet you all in existing debates. Thank you all for coming to the beautiful place, really all for coming. All the best wishes for a great, inspiring conference. I declare this annual meeting as opened. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Abdelmajid Charfi, le président donc, de l'Académie tunisienne. Merci, Monsieur Klaus Peter Ster, le président donc, du Comité international des villes et du village historique. Bon, avant de commencer donc, notre travail sur le premier thème, j'aimerais bien faire juste une petite introduction concernant le thème qui a été donc, choisi. Bon, ce thème, il a été choisi pour plusieurs raisons. C'est vrai, on est en train de, pour la Tunisie, on célèbre le 40e anniversaire du classement de ces deux sites sur la liste du patrimoine mondial, mais aussi cette rencontre, elle est sous le thème donc, du label patrimoine mondial avec la recommandation de 2011 de l'UNESCO qui est sur les paysages urbains historiques, mais aussi avec une approche et une réflexion par rapport au développement durable, sans oublier donc, les objectifs qui ont été développés au niveau de Habitat 3 en 2015-2016. Donc c'est sur cette égide qu'on va développer notre réflexion, et notamment par rapport à la région donc, à laquelle le pays appartient. On est devant beaucoup de défis et beaucoup de, par rapport à nos villes et à nos sites de patrimoniaux. On est en train de vivre dans la région des conflits armés. On a beaucoup de points. Donc, moi, je compte sur cette rencontre pour qu'on puisse sortir avec des recommandations qui pourront nous aider pour la sauvegarde et la protection de notre patrimoine. Et je crois sans plus s'attarder, je vais donner, donc on va commencer le premier thème qui est essentiellement un thème sur le développement durable et le patrimoine et la conservation du patrimoine. Et nous avons donc le plaisir de commencer cette matinée avec Dr Shedi El-Radben de la Palestine, qui va donc nous présenter cette réflexion par rapport à ce qu'on est en train de vivre par rapport au patrimoine en Palestine. Donc la parole est à vous. Vous pouvez vous placer.
صباح الخير للجميع. صباح الخير. وبداية أود أن أشكر بيت الحكمة والإخوة الأعزاء في تونس على هذا الترحاب الكبير وعلى استضافة هذا التجمع، وأتمنى أن تثمر أعمال هذا المنتدى أو هذا اللقاء عن نتائج وتوصيات لها دلالتها في مجال الموروث الثقافي المحلي والعالمي أيضا. كنت قد اتفقت مع فائقة أن أتحدث بالعربية وأن أقدم مداخلتي بالعربية، وتفاجأت صباح هذا اليوم بأنها طلبت مني أن إذا كان بالإمكان أن أقدم هذه المداخلة باللغة الإنجليزية لسبب محدد، ولكن تم الاتفاق لأن المداخلة تم إعدادها باللغة العربية، وهنالك راح يكون في ترجمة أيضا للغة الإنجليزية على الشرائح، فسأتحدث بالعربية، ليس لأني موجود في بلد نحن نعتز بعروبته هو تونس، ولكن أيضا لأنه تم إعداد المداخلة باللغة العربية، وأرى واجبا عليها أيضا في العالم العربي أن نستخدم هذه اللغة الجميلة في عملنا أيضا. حديثي هو عن الموروث الثقافي. Of rebuilding after destruction. We know that the Palestinian area is a pathway between Asia, Europe, Asia, and Africa. And this area, all over the history, was suffering from continuous wars and from continuous destruction. Also, due to this fact, also we had continuous changes in the geopolitical systems in Palestine. The reforms in the national economy and the emergence of new economic functions was always prevailing. Actually, it was not constant, a trend to develop, always it was continuing the system. Formation of new social institutions necessitated by the above-mentioned issues, and we have changes in the class structure and the formation of a new lifestyle. All these actually, the organization of the built environment always has been under continuous developmental changes. I will pass through just to show you this map. Actually, the Palestinian cultural heritage sites, considering that what I am showing is only the West Bank of Jordan or the West Bank of Palestine. It's not historical Palestine, actually. And not Gaza. Gaza also is exempted because now we have a survey going on in Gaza to define the cultural heritage sites in Gaza. But if you look to the picture, actually it's one amazing picture. We have about 2,000 archaeological sites, Khirbe, Tel, Old Town, and so on. We have about 5,000 archaeological features, cave, church, maqam, monastery, burial. We have about 60,000 traditional buildings, and we have 1,000 archaeological sites, excavated sites, but we don't know the number of the unexcavated ones. And the area of this piece of land is just 5,200 square kilometers. So you can imagine the density of cultural heritage elements in this small area of the world. Also, we can imagine that each city in Palestine, every Palestinian city, has its own identity. Jerusalem and Bethlehem are the cities of religion. Jericho is the city of history. Nablus and Hebron are the cities of food, Palestinian life, in addition to history and handicraft, and so on. For other cities, we can say the same. For our maybe happiness that despite the geopolitical situation and the security conditions in Palestinian territories, in the last year, 2018, the number of the visitors reached more than 3 million visitors. They were coming as tourists in several ways or several meanings. How we can classify the components of this heritage? We can put it in 5 categories. Archaeological sites, ruins. You have some of them. We can speak about Jericho. We can speak about the Umayyad ruins in Jerusalem. We can speak about Sebastia. We can speak about the Roman also ruins. Here is the same. This is Hisham Palace in Jericho, and this is the last mosaic findings in Gaza. It's now under excavation. Also, we can speak, the second is the monuments of individual buildings of outstanding architectural and or historical interests. We have the churches in Jerusalem, we have the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and we have the Church of Nativity. Also, we have some Umayyad and Islamic remains. We have the schools. Actually, 2 of these, this one and the other one are schools, actually. This is a Nabi Musa or Prophet Musa site in Jericho, next to Jericho. It was restored last year, actually. We have the third one is historic urban cores or groups of buildings of architecture and or historic value. These are some examples from the Turkish or from the early Mandate era in Palestine. So this is the same. Or we have these buildings, which we can call them the architecture of the 20th century. The fourth is rural suburbs and villages of architecture and or historic interests. This is actually the architecture in the rural areas in Palestine, which is, let me say, imitation of the famous palaces in the big cities, but they are standing alone buildings and complexes. This is a top view of one of the palaces. And we have lastly the cultural landscape, or the cultural and natural landscape in Palestine. I am sorry just to show you this picture, maybe on here. You can see this is one of the new settlements, Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territories. You can see this place in 1997, what it was, and you can see it in 2007. Now, all this green place was destroyed to build a settlement. And this is Batir. I think that the people who worked with Batir and UNESCO and ICOMOS, they know the site very well. Now, when we speak about restoration or preservation or rehabilitation in Palestine, we can say this is a very new practice in Palestine. Usually during the history, the Palestinian cities were closed within their boundaries. And actually most of the activities inside were oriented toward the large religious monuments, as the Church of Sepulchre or the Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Dome of the Rock and so on. But there was no practice to renovate the existing infrastructure or the existing compounds, building compounds in the old cities, actually because these buildings were renovated frequently due to the continuous wars in the area. Actually, therefore, these cities started going beyond their boundaries after 1850. Why this date? This date actually, the date when we can start speaking about the Ottoman reforms in the area. We know that the country Palestine was one part of Levant, the Levant, and the Levant was under 400 years under the Ottoman rule, actually. In 1850, in Turkey, okay. So we can say till 1850, we didn't have any survey or any interest toward the cultural heritage in this area until only for these buildings. So we can say that after 1871, 1878, and in 1944, 1955, we had, after 1966, we had 3 surveys done by the English and by the Israeli people. And these are the results of this excavation on the right hand. I am putting these pictures just to show now the situation in the Palestinian territory, that we have 3 areas, A, B, and C, according to Oslo Agreement or Oslo Accords, and the Palestinian authorities has control only on A and B, not more than that. C is under the Israeli control, and this actually prevents or limits our capabilities to deal with all these cultural heritage sites in the Palestinian territories. I will go through that. After 1992, the Oslo agreements, we did a lot of surveys. 3 surveys were done, and they actually, the result that we have more than 50,000 architectural ownerships, mainly in the West Bank. More than 45% are fair or bad shape. 50% are partially used or totally abandoned. I will see some of these places that when we started working on individual buildings, as this building in the Ottoman court in Ramallah. This is Al-Khaldiya Library in East Jerusalem. Also, we started a process of capacity building activities, public participation in the process of renovation and the cultural heritage process. And actually, we went to urban intervention at larger scale than single buildings. And these are some of the aspects. And now we are moving toward the regional approach in dealing with the cultural heritage aspects in Palestine. In this picture, you will see that we are dealing with 5 separate villages, rich with cultural heritage monuments, and we are working with them as one compound, as one group of the last year also, the new bylaw was accepted in Palestine. This bylaw actually defined the cultural heritage as cultural properties, either movable or immovable, above or under the ground, or totally or partially under the water, and date before 1917. Look, this is the problem actually what we have. And just to go quickly, I will show you some buildings built after 1917. I will finish with that. These, you can see all these picture that actually, when we speak about the architecture of the 20th century, what we have to do with this heritage. All these buildings were built before 1960. Thank you very much.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Cheli Semiradben. Sans plus tarder, on va passer à la deuxième présentation parce qu'on a prévu de faire les présentations par thème. Après, on lance un débat. Donc maintenant, j'invite Madame Sofia Colonias pour nous présenter donc l'importance des objectifs de développement durable pour la protection du paysage de l'Attique et la qualité de la vie. Le cas de la plaine Triasion en Odyssée. Sophia. 5. Voilà. Et on va mettre diaporama. Voilà.
Écran total.
Voilà, c'est diaporama, donc à partir du début, et hop, voilà.
Merci. Chers collègues et amis, bonjour. J'aimerais vous parler en arabe, mais malheureusement, j'ai oublié cette langue de mon enfance parce que je suis née en Égypte. Je vous adresse que quelques mots en français, mais en parlerai en anglais finalement. Alors, pour introduire ce sujet, je voudrais vous présenter un cas d'une ville qui se trouve aux alentours d'Athènes, qui était la région industrielle du pays après la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, qui essaye les dernières années d'utiliser la culture comme motif d'un développement durable. C'est une question très difficile. On ne peut pas l'aménager d'une façon assez facile. Et il s'agit d'un essai qui n'est pas encore accompli et maintenant probablement se trouve en danger. Ce n'est pas facile de parler et utiliser la culture et l'héritage pour avoir un développement durable. Mais cet exemple est intéressant. So, the Attica landscape, it is about the region of Athens, the capital of Greece. The Attica landscape bordering the sea has unique natural features. This natural territory is characterized by the alternation of mountains and plains, which are surrounded by the sea, an area where the olive tree, the vineyard, and the pine trees used to dominate. In this wonderful place, protected by the goddess Athena, important historical cities and historical sites were formed too early. In early times, there were several independent settlements there as Eleusis, the city that we are going to speak about, Athens and Marathon. Athens had a dominant position due to its powerful religious and symbolic importance. Steeped in war and intrigue, culture and myth through the ages, it's easy to see how Attica and Athens became the heart of the civilized world. Their rich history is very much evident today as you take in the sights and sounds of Athens, one of the many key cities in the region. No other area can lay claim to so many historical events and important cities as Attica. Indeed, it is in cities such as Eleusis, Megara, Marathon that democracy, philosophy, and poetry originated. Every step made and every stone turned depicts a conflict between gods and humans, Greeks and invaders, or Athenians and other Greeks. In its history, one can also see giant leaps forward for the sciences, literature, and the arts, all rooted in Attica, which was once united under the command of King Theseus in the history. Although Attica's architecture is impressive, its buildings are overheld by the Acropolis, the ancient citadel that became the foundation of the civilized world and still rules the skyline to this day. It is also the logo of UNESCO. As you can see in le curseur. Oh, no. Mais ça va. It is in the center of this projection. Acropolis was related with the Thracian plain and the city of Eleusis. Athens annexed the city of Eleusis. The Eleusinian mysteries were initiations held every year for the cult of Demeter and Persephone based at Eleusis. They are the most famous of the secret religious rites on the ancient Greek. Their basis was an old agrarian cult, and there is some evidence that they were derived from the religious practices of the Messenian in the prehistoric period in Greece. The mysteries represented the myth of abduction of Persephone from her mother Demeter. You can see this sculpture. On the left, the mother Demeter, and on the right, her daughter Persephone. So, by the king of the underworld, Hades, in a cycle with 3 phases: the descent, the loss, the search, and the ascent, with the main theme being the ascent of Persephone from the down to up, and the reunion with her mother. It was a major festival during the Hellenic era and later spread to Rome. Persephone is said to stay in Hades during winter and return in the spring of the year. This was the day at the very beginning of bountiful springtime. This fits with the Mediterranean change of seasons. As every Mediterranean farmer knows, nature from November to February is basically dormant. Persephone's rebirth is symbolic of the rebirth of all plant life and the symbol of eternity of life that flows from the generations that spring from each other. Therefore, Eleusis was considered to be, for almost 2,000 years, one of the 5 holy cities where the Eleusinian mysteries attract for years pilgrims from all over the known world. Thanks to great tragic poet Aeschylus, one of the first poets of the world, Eleusis gets even more famous in the ancient world as well as in our days. After 40 centuries of obscurity, during the 19th century, and after the liberation from Ottoman occupation, Eleusis appears as a small town of 250 inhabitants. In this time, Eleusis began slowly to change its urban profile with the construction of new buildings and the installation of certain small crafting industries. In the 60s and 70s, the city's natural environment suffered major degradation. Excuse me. Sorry. Excuse me. Pardon. So, in the 60s and 70s, the city's natural environment suffered major degradation due to the pollution caused by industrial facilities operating in the area. For Greeks, the image of Eleusis is inexplicably linked to the industry and to the destruction of the natural environment. The excessive concentration of industry, mainly in Eleusis, but also through Western Attica, resulted in major degradation of the quality of life of its inhabitants and the environment. One typical example of the magnitude of the problem is that at the end of 70s, the Gulf of Eleusis was considered to be the most polluted sea in the Mediterranean, as its bottom was covered by a meter of mud, putting every marine organism at risk of extinction. The close proximity of industry and history create the city's visual paradox that needs no description. It is instantly perceptible by the visitor. The destruction of natural environment caused by industrial development in the case of Eleusis attracts the interest of the international community because Eleusis is not any industrial city. It is the symbolic place of humans' connection with nature, the city of Mother Earth Demeter and her daughter Persephone. Reaching the 21st century, Eleusis became a modern town, which disposes of the distinctions of a glorious past. It constitutes the administrative center of the wider area and the headquarters of the prefecture of Western Attica. The archaeological site and its museum constitute sites of international interest and tourist attraction. Furthermore, the festival Aeschylia, dedicated to poet Aeschylus, the cultural events organized by the municipality each autumn is nowadays an institution that gives the possibility of expression of modern cultural matters of the town. Therefore, alongside with the economic development, the ongoing efforts for infrastructural improvement and protective environmental measures, efforts are made from the side of public authorities, private associations, and individuals for rehabilitation of the spiritual character of the town, so as to be worthy of the heritage that bears the name Eleusis. Je finis. Eleusis, c'est le plus important maintenant. Eleusis has constantly sought to transform itself into a dynamic cultural center because its citizens are increasingly aware that the city's sustainable future and improved quality of life are directly dependent on its cultural growth. Eleusis has many important achievements to boost in the period since year 2000. The municipality has a steady investment in culture of approximately 5 to 6% of its annual budget. It has managed to establish the city's central cultural institution, the Aeschylia Festival, as a national event with a leading position in the field of visual arts. It has established methods to support contemporary activity that are innovative by Greek standards. Following the principles of Sustainable Development Goals 11.4 and the Cultural Agenda 2013, the city of Eleusis decided to be nominated for the title of European Cultural Capital. European Capital of Culture. It was an irrevocable decision of the city to change the situation and make its definitive transition to a new growth model. It is expected that the title of the European Cultural Capital will act as a catalyst for a series of developments at national, local, and European level, which are critical for Eleusis' future. It is interesting that the concept of this project it was based on three major lines. Starting from the notion of EU, as the first words of Europe, etc. The title is to transition to euphoria, that is mean the rebirth. In Greek, the adverb EU stands for good, not in a moralistic, but in a deeper sense. EU is the good that has the power to transform and upgrade the situation of a city. So, three lines of this project. The urbanization theme, we focus on the social aspect of transition, the challenge of refunding our relationship to the other, whether that is EU citizens of another member state or the stranger, the one who comes from outside the EU, the immigrants and refugees that are numerous in Greece. I am finished. The EU working classes theme, we deal with the economic aspect of transition, focusing on the challenge of labor and the human workforce of the future. And the third one concerns environment. The EU environment theme, we focus on the great challenge of redefining our relationship to the environment. As you can understand, the challenge is not easy to be managed. And this project is, at my opinion, endangered. I was last year the president of ECOC, European Capital of Culture LFCs, and I know that we need, in addition to all this concept, the local desire to implement this topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Sophia. Bon, tu m'excuses si je te presse parce que bon, pour qu'on reste, c'est très bien. Donc maintenant, c'est Monsieur Paolo Motta qui va nous parler. Il va échanger avec nous sur quelques réflexions sur les villes et le développement durable.
Bonjour à tout le monde et merci à Faïka, merci à l'Académie, merci à Civi et Tunisie pour nous recevoir dans ce magnifique bâtiment historique qui fait la comparaison avec la réunion d'ICOMOS que nous avons à Marrakech. C'est toute une autre chose, un autre endroit. Ça, c'est l'esprit qui nous guide dans notre comité. Malheureusement, ma présentation sera en anglais car aujourd'hui, il semble que les Français
en train de disparaître.
On espère qu'après la sortie des Anglais, s'ils vont sortir, on recommence à parler français un peu plus. Ok.
C'est pas le panel, non. Si.
Sound Reflection. Non, ce n'est pas panel. Bon.
Non, mais attends, on a le...
Et nous l'avons sauvé, ce n'est pas celui-là. Ce n'est pas celui-là. Hein.
Ça.
Oh non.
Mais on l'avait enregistré.
Eh oui, on l'avait enregistré, mais il n'est pas là.
Non.
Bon, je commence tout de suite.
Tu me donnes la clé. La clé, c'est tout. On va enlever tout ça.
Il s'appelle... C'est lui.
C'est pas... Ah, voilà, ouvrir. Et donc Tunis, c'est ça? C'est ça?
C'est là-bas.
Je pense que c'était plutôt...
Celui-là, oui.
C'est ça?
Oui.
Voilà. On met le diaporama.
Bon, disons que... non. Let's say my presentation is just a resume of a paper I've been sending that is quite longer and is all the details. So it's just something behind just to follow and to get some ideas. But it's not completely updated because the other day We had a very good meeting in Marrakesh on Saturday, exactly with the working group on the SDGs. And it was a long discussion of a few hours about the connection between heritage and SDGs. And it was emerging a very close relationship with the main examples done between the SDG goals and the heritage. We were focusing with all the different people of the different committees the impact that some examples had on the SDGs, and they were enormous. On the 17 goals, often the heritage was involving 10 goals around within the same thing. Comment je fais pour avancer? Oui, okay. Je vais aller. How can I go back? Comment je peux aller en arrière? Non. I want to go pour aller en arrière, oui. Okay. Okay. C'est bien. Alors, the first thing that I want to say that in all the papers that have been produced on the last years, included the United Nations Agenda in 2016, and including the goals, the theme and the topics related to heritage and to urban development has not been completely and clearly defined. Very generic discussions or declarations, but no clear guidelines, no intervention tools, and no requirements. If we make an example of what it has been done about climate, on climate today everything is focused with climate. If you have a house, you have to be careful that the windows are corresponding to that. You cannot sell the house if it's not corresponding to certain standards. With the cars, exactly the same. No requirements exactly for what it is cultural heritage. So I believe, and it's something I got convinced after these 3 days of discussions we had in Marrakesh and before with another committee of culture and tourism, that the relevance of heritage is as much as the climate. The climate, people 30 years ago was not either thinking what it was. The first Rio conference was just something thinking very theoretic. After 20 years, we're seeing now things are completely changed. Today, we have a big danger represented to smaller cities, villages, that is our relevance from the urbanization. That is rising in an enormous way, exponential way, and is given for done that in 2050, this is the report of last year, is the survey made by the United Nations on world urbanization, so that is very new. For 2050 will be 43 cities, over 10 million people, most of them in new developing countries, and no mention on what is the rest. 70% of the world population is expected to live in urban situation. But luckily, of this 70%, 50%, so means 35% of the whole number, will live still in cities until 500,000 of inhabitants. And another 30% will be living in rural settlements or rural areas. So the majority of the world population in 2050 will still be settled in smaller cities, in towns, villages, and rural settlements. So it's time to enhance the role of this part of the human, and try to stop somehow the unruly urbanization that is ongoing. This is just an example of the metropolis in Asia. Jakarta has been growing in the last years in such an enormous way that today they have to move, probably the capital from Jakarta to another place because Jakarta is going under danger of flood, no enough water, and no enough quality of life for the citizens. So, in inclusion, these big cities, sometimes they're conserving some small patches of what they call heritage or historic cities. This is an Asian city, but you can see the same in Dubai, in Sharjah, etc., where there are some little parts of the city within the skyscrapers and like that. And they call this like a huge project of rehabilitation and conservation of the heritage. Then, what I want to say, that the close relationship is very, very important between climate, and we have to force it. And dangers for heritage are coming from external factors. The example of Palestine is clear. The example of Palestine has been external factors who for decades they have been trying to cut completely what is the physical heritage. It means also the intangible heritage, and it means the loss of the sense of belonging. And this is a political scope. So this is happening due to external factors that they have to be fought, and we can give maybe like academics a small contribution to this. Another danger is represented by mass tourism. Mass tourism is not a political, but it is an economical danger that is putting in danger what is heritage. The other day in Marrakesh, someone were presenting an example of a building of a dam in the island of Crete in Greece. They were making a very big dam to give water to the huge tourist settlements along the coast. They were destroying completely the internal area of the island, where it was traditional agriculture, traditional villages, and way of working and living, that slowly they are disappearing. So I think that we have to go on and trying to mitigate the wild urbanization process. And what is completely different, I would say, in the last years, is that nowadays, maybe not yet till either 20 years ago, modern technologies can, looks a strange conclusion, but they can help heritage. Because today, with the new Wi-Fi all around, if well extended, with the new physical instruments like drones that you can control agriculture, you can control logistics, you can move. You don't need anymore to rush against the cities, and you can rise the level, the standard living in smaller villages or settlements, avoiding commuting, and keeping people on the place. What it means that? It means big results for the environment, because human being is remaining to control the country. The examples of the Mediterranean terraces are clear. The day that the terraces are lost, when it's arriving water, all the floods are coming down. You are keeping social cohesion, you are keeping quality of life, you're keeping work, labor, traditional work and skills in a reasonable way. I am working also with the private sector, and what is unbelievable, there are huge plans of millions of investments. Before I made the example of Africa, and here we have big cities like Lagos, like Nairobi, like Cairo, and so on, Luanda, over 10 million people, and of the new corridors that we are working now between Europe and Asia. Well, in all the papers, including the last declarations of Europe, Eurasian connectivity, we talk of transport, logistics, energy, data, and no mention at all of what is happening on the territories that are crossed by these huge infrastructures, and what advantages they could represent for the people who is living near them. So I think it's necessary a stronger position of ICOMOS and CV within ICOMOS to prepare some written papers, some documents, like we did a few years ago with Valletta Principles, that we are putting to the attention of ICOMOS, and then ICOMOS is putting to the attention of the United Nations agenda of the relevance of the heritage that is in danger now. Climate, people has accepted. The people now has to get aware that heritage is part of our belonging, is part of what we call genius loci, like is saying Elena was meaning in Eleusis, genius loci is 3,000 years old, and so on. But in every place of the world, there is a genius loci that people want to keep. So to rise quality of life, we have to give a stronger push to what is the relevance of heritage. And we can't wait because things are going faster and faster and faster. And the model that now is spreading all around the world is not the local models that are completely lost also in local or vernacular architecture, but is a commercial model imposed by economic powers. So if you take China, that has a huge, enormous tradition, if you go now and you see the Chinese young people, they have another model in head. And they think to build cities that are arriving up to over 50 million people. And that is completely the loss of any human, normal mankind relationship and social cohesion. I think it's all, and the rest can be on the papers. I try to be short as possible.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Here are some examples of modern technologies. You see drones applied in agriculture. This is new transport. This is what it could be instead of this. These are models of livable cities. And so here it is. For concerned actors as ICOMOS and Civi, who are especially attentive on historic cities and settlement heritage, safeguards should be among the drivers, and they must become active promoters of such a campaign. Okay? Last thing I added yesterday, I think we should try to make a document ready for next assembly of October 2020 in Sydney, because it's notice getting very late. Thank you very much.
Merci, merci beaucoup. Donc là, on passe à la dernière présentation pour le premier thème, donc, qui traite de développement durable. Donc, j'invite Monsieur Álvaro Gómez Bayo pour nous parler des impacts du changement climatique et le rôle des bonnes pratiques de conservation. Mehdi. Oh. Ah, voilà, ça reprend. Mais... Il est bon, il a redémarré. Est-ce que tu m'as rachalé? Pourtant, il s'est amusé. Il s'est arrêté, non, mais non.
Oui.
Bon.
On a le temps, non? On a un quart d'heure.
Oui, on a un quart d'heure, puis on fait un petit débat, et puis après on fait une petite pause café, on rentre.
Mais un quart d'heure, tranquillement.
Tranquillement, un quart d'heure, non, ouais. Le quart d'heure, tranquillement. Voilà, donc c'est là, ça va.
Yes.
Décline, voilà, décline. D'accord, après on ira à Il n'y a pas de problème.
C'est quand même, non? Ça marche lentement.
Oui, non mais... Parce que Paul, il a mis son truc, il l'a retiré. Normalement, il ne le retire pas comme ça.
Ah oui, c'est ça.
Parce que tout à l'heure...
C'est ça, tout à l'heure.
Ça a ouvert facilement tout à l'heure. Tu te rappelles, on a vérifié.
Oui, on a vérifié de faire ça.
Là, parce que...
Mais il a fait mal, oui. Brusquement.
Voilà. Donc tu fais des diaporamas maintenant.
Oui, on le fait un gros.
Voilà.
Un gros, ok. Bonjour, good morning. Oui. C'est lui? Ça va? Yes. Good morning. My presentation wants to explore the impacts of the climate change in the heritage particularly in the historic urban landscape, and to remember the role of the good conservation practice. 2 years ago, I accepted as member of CIVI to join the task force group of ICOMOS that began the difficult way to build a document for the World Heritage Center, in which to underline the various problems concerning the affection of the climate change in all kinds of heritage. I was one of the lead authors in charge of one of the thematic essays, the role of good conservation practice. It's for that they go to concentrate in this part of the outline, and I have with me the complete copy of the outline. If you want to see and to how is the question? What? Il faut fermer, oui. Okay. So the first meeting we had in Baku, in Bahrain last year, and it's for that I presented this picture. The idea of the main proposals was presented by Andrew Potts, an American lawyer that is in charge of the coordination of the working group. And the first principal ideas is that, to coordinate ICOMOS inputs to the update of the World 2007 World Heritage Committee policy. Develop a draft global climate change organizational engagement program for ICOMOS, that we speak about a roadmap for ICOMOS, and coordinate the drafting of a new ICOMOS charter on climate change as heritage in the way to be adopted in the 20th ICOMOS Triennial Assembly in Sydney next year. And finally, launch an international, I can't remember what is this international panel climate change engagement initiative to better coordinate the ICOMOS scientific program with the work on this climate change panel and coverage of heritage by the IPPC. On a beaucoup de menaces ici, on voit des menaces. This is the resolution de la General Assembly. You can read it. The important was coming from ICOMOS, that cultural heritage is both impacted by climate change as a source of resilience for communities, etc. Was the ideas of ICOMOS made in this General Assembly. You know what is the problem of Venice when the flood is coming, everybody can. The climate change impacts are very strong impact on what is now considered to be a good conservation practice, because many conservation management and assessment standards, such as constructs of authenticity and integrity, will need to be rethought. That's very important for us, because we have been a lot of work in authenticity and integrity of the cities, and we must rethought of if we are in the right way. Climate change will take us beyond the delicate balance between conservation and development. That is normally in our meetings that the problem are between both. But now we go further to fundamental questions of human rights and the role of culture in facilitating difficult social transitions. The multiple and interconnecting layers of climate change impacts must become a baseline competency of heritage management, as are sustainable development principles. We speak with Paulo before, and we think that now we have two goals very important, two challenges better, no? The sustainable development and the climate change. That is really the big problems now. And tourism, for me, the third one is tourism. Terrible. So that is images of the problem of the climate change. This is La Habana, Malecón, the storm, the typhoon, and here I put some ideas to reflect our mind in this kind of way. No, you can read it. It is identifying and documenting the full range of places with heritage values has been, till now, the core heritage practice. But now this practice we need to expand and modify to focus on values that support climate action. That is the question. Making use of culturally appropriate documentation tools, etc. The consistent application of good basic conservation practices, especially routine maintenance, the continuous protective care of a place and its setting, is itself often an adaptation and or mitigation strategy. Preparing and implementing preventive maintenance plans, which have built into them an emphasis on adaptation mitigation, will provide owners and managers with the conservation actions, management decisions, and required timing of critical maintenance work. I think it's very different, the problem in the building or in a museum, that in the city. For us, for CB, we have a problem bigger than the other colleagues, because to understand what can we do in a city to prevent the action of climate change is not so easy as for example, a museum, because in this outline you can see there are 5 or 6 columns and the different kinds of heritage. No, for example, at the end, intangible heritage. But the cities or the historic cities are mixed in 2 or 3 columns as buildings, as landscapes, cultural landscapes, and finally as communities, because it's also very important the situation of the city. Here is, for example, when we speak about the normal maintenance, here is the Cathedral of Sevilla that has always as in charge of repairing and restoring some. And on the other hand, this is a simple problem. This is a house in our village in Veteran, Valencia, that needs to repair only to change the roof, no? Or some parts of the roof. This is we can say about the normal maintenance. Then more questions. For example, archaeological sites. In this document, there is a big explanation of the problems in archaeological sites. That is not our competence, our affair, no? But I think that is important, as has said before by Sofia, no? Good heritage conservation practice always begins with a clear understanding of the significance of the place, the needs of its stakeholders, and includes the development of policies to both assess risk and manage change. This understanding goes beyond a physical condition and fabric analysis to understand the history of development of the site, to assess its association, integrity, and authenticity. These assessments form the basis of conservation management plans. The idea is for the UNESCO or for the heritage, no? To send some principles to be necessary included the prevention and in the management plans related with the climate change. That is the final idea of this work that we have begun. No? Here is a solution of to cover an archaeological site in Spain, very, very, very fantastic. Also the solution, new architectural solution near in the province of Palencia in the central part of Spain. This is a Roman villa in La Olmeda. It's very nice to see both the archaeological and the intervention. No? In historical urban landscapes, the practice of good conservation concerns in particular the administration of planning and development controls. That is clear. Our capacity is to send messages for the administration of the cities. The principles of historical urban landscape practice correlate well to the needs of climate action, including adaptation planning, should be adopted as a part of urban policies, etc. No? Etc. It's not so important to go deeper, but for example, the last one is interesting. Similarly, administrations and town planners have the obligation to do good and comprehensive conservation action plan supporting the community and the surrounding historical urban landscape. I think it's also very important. And I want to finish with this picture in the east part of Spain that is today desert, no? Is as the north of Africa comes to the east of Spain, at the south also, but the east is very concerned. This outline, I presented the copy, was finished on May this year and adopted in Baku during the 43rd session of the World Heritage Committee. The title of the document is Future of Our Past. I think it's a very suggestive title, easy to present to everybody. We need now to continue our work according different steps. And to finish, I want to remember that CIVI has been very active creating, for example, the Valletta principles. Why not to think in a new document to join this general outline, climate change and cultural heritage, in order to establish some parameters regarding the historical urban landscape? I think it's our task. I propose we can speak in our meeting tomorrow deeply, but I think you can see the whole document is very large, but we can take this part between us, because I began with the conservation, the practices, and we can go further and in order to find some criteria, some ideas to give to the administration, to the colleagues also. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Bon, là, on ouvre le débat par rapport aux 4 présentations, donc on attend vos... Peut-être j'invite... Bon, je ne sais pas.
Tu restes?
Oui, tu restes. Oui, tu restes. Et les autres participants de venir se joindre à nous. Bon, oui, pour engager le débat par rapport à vos présentations. J'ai beaucoup de ça. On ramène des chaises.
Allez, Shadi. Come in. Paulo.
Sophia, Paolo. On ramène une chaise. Vous savez un peu, mais...
Close. One.
Non, mais c'est pas grave. S'il vous plaît, si vous avez... on commence un débat, please. Si vous avez des questions ou des éclaircissements par rapport à ce qui a été dit, voilà.
I think that the proposal Alvaro has made about further research and also discussion and also writing on this interrelations between historic urban landscape, sustainable development and climate change, which is an important part. One of our challenges we are facing today, like the cultural, the tourism, not the cultural tourism in general, but tourism as a danger. So I think we will. I think your proposal we will discuss it tomorrow in the annual meeting. Thank you.
Yes. I added the problem of the tourists because it's really, we came from Marrakech yesterday, no? And it is possible to have a balance between the people who want to know the city and the people who live there. It's not so easy. But really, I think that what Paulo said, the sustainable development and the climate change and tourism, both the 3 parts are really problem to find the better solution, the better ways.
The tourist committee held by Tomeu and Ferguson to Mallorca. And Mallorca was a shock coming from Mallorca to Marrakesh. Mallorca is split in 2. One part is mass tourism, that is a plague, destroyed, but still the other half of Mallorca, Serra Tramontana, was a fantastic example of the togetherness of heritage, tourism, environment, practices, the terraces of the olives, the equation of the people, the habits, and like that. And that was sustainable tourism. And economic figures that we will discuss a little bit, they're showing that this is not short term, but in long term, the economic advantage for local economies, it is good. So the relevance of keeping, I think the discussion between the two committees must be very close. Today, tourism is the big, well, we discussed it a few years ago about Venice, you were showing. Has been something like that.
Okay. Mahdi Deleji, architect. I would like to thank all the speakers for this first theme. I have a question about half for Mr. Paulo and half for Mr. Alvaro. Sustainability today includes climate change questions, social and economical questions, and what is the tool that we can produce today to answer to these questions? Half question is, what is the link in your intervention, Mr. Paulo Mota? I have one experience, a French experience, with a rule ZPPAUP. So actually, the French, I know, actually the French created in 1994 a rule that is zone de protection du patrimoine architectural urbain et paysager. For the moment, actually, the practice is paysager means natural landscape, but today the purpose is about urban landscape. So maybe it can be an opening to think about a tool, traversant, crossing tool, to think about this question, maybe tomorrow morning after the conference. Thank you.
Oh, yes, I think we can send for tomorrow because it's a real discussion, not only for a debate. No? I think we go further tomorrow. And the tools is the most difficult question is to find the tools, a possible tools, not theoretical tools. Yes.
Merci. But as I mentioned, 30 years ago, who was talking in the world about climate? It was awareness. If people is understanding, and we are succeeding to do that, we can have the power to maybe have little sand put into something that is going to the powers that are spending millions or billions of money on the territory. They don't either know what is ICOMOS, they don't know either what is CV, they don't know anything, and they go ahead like that. They take the pen, and all the work done by local communities, local economies like that is completely unattended. So only thing is to fight slowly, slowly, slowly.
Bon, je me permets d'être un peu différencié par rapport à ce que Paolo a dit. Le climat se trouvait dans la discussion depuis longtemps. Et il faut savoir que l'ICOMOS s'occupait de cette question depuis longtemps. En 2007, on a eu une discussion très forte au sein de l'ICOMOS. La rencontre du Pretoria, du comité consultatif était dédiée au climat, au changement du climat. Et je me permets de vous dire que si on parle du développement durable, le climat se trouve dans la discussion, mais pas dans un format tout à fait spécial et clair comme ça c'est apparu récemment. Et alors, il y a une longue discussion au sein de l'ICOMOS concernant le climat et les répercussions, les impacts sur l'héritage. Les exemples que notre collègue, membre honoraire de notre comité, Alvaro, a présentés, portent sur cette problématique qui concerne l'ICOMOS depuis longtemps. Merci.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. D'abord, permettez-moi de féliciter tous les conférencières et les conférenciers pour tout ce qu'ils nous ont apporté. C'est une occurrence absolument extraordinaire pour nous d'écouter et d'apprendre les expériences de l'autre. Il y a un problème qui n'est pas souvent soulevé ni par les archéologues, ni par les urbanistes, ni par les experts d'UNESCO. On parle, par exemple, beaucoup d'érosion, mais on ne parle pas de l'érosion linguistique. Car dans les pays comme les nôtres, les pays arabes, de culture, car ils sont différents, l'arabité est multiple, eh bien, cette érosion linguistique empêche de faire face vraiment et d'une façon efficace aux problèmes que pose le patrimoine en général. En plus, il y a un problème aussi très important, c'est que dans ces pays arabes, les Arabes ne s'approprient pas leur patrimoine pré-arabe. C'est-à-dire, pour eux, et d'ailleurs je vois que la tendance se généralise, on pense souvent au patrimoine pour l'aspect lucratif, les visiteurs, le tourisme. On ne parle pas véritablement de culture et de fécondation que la culture peut apporter à l'homme pour la création. Donc, vous posez, je ne veux pas faire une conférence, mais je vois qu'on n'est pas toujours sur la bonne voie pour l'approche du patrimoine, parce que la Tunisie, la Palestine n'est pas l'Angleterre ou la Grèce. D'ailleurs, la Grèce se réveille. Mais quand je vois Éleusis, quand je vois tous ces sites absolument extraordinaires qui nous ont enrichis et qui continuent de nous enrichir, nous, à travers toute la Méditerranée. Mais on ne fera pas la Méditerranée sans la grécité. Et c'est vous dire combien ce type de rencontre est utile, mais il faut peut-être avoir une vision beaucoup plus globale pour comprendre les choses. Merci beaucoup.
Je vais répondre. Non, je vais répondre, si vous me permettez, parce que ce que vous venez de dire, c'est tout à fait raison. Vous avez raison. On peut prendre un exemple qui est proche à nous. Nous avons reçu la notion de paysage historique urban landscape et nous étions mal à l'aise avec ces notions paysagères pour définir la ville. Mais petit à petit, on l'a accepté. Ce sont des choses qu'on prend des mots, des concepts qui ne sont pas les exacts ou les plus appropriés pour définir une chose. Et finalement, on les accepte. Et cette acceptation devient une laxitude, disons. On ouvre le problème au lieu de concentrer et définir chaque chose selon sa situation, sa circonstance et ce qu'il est. Et ça, c'est vraiment un problème pour aujourd'hui. Une perte de langage et encore plus un mélange et appropriation des termes et les utiliser pour des choses qui ne sont exactement pour eux. Merci beaucoup de votre intervention.
Juste un petit mot, excusez-moi madame, mais c'est juste une précision par rapport à ce que vous venez de dire, docteur Fantar, par rapport à par exemple, là, les paysages urbains historiques ou les paysages culturels. Le problème s'est posé, par exemple, comment le dire en arabe. Je ne préfère pas dire comment le traduire en arabe, non, mais comment le dire, le paysage. Est-ce qu'on dit al-mashhad? Est-ce qu'on dit... par exemple, directement, quand on parle paysage, ça donne une connotation plus naturelle que culturelle. Donc, c'est vrai ce que vous venez de dire. Et d'ailleurs, il est grand temps peut-être qu'on se penche sur la question pour pouvoir avancer. Parce que si on remarque, les conventions, les lois, depuis les années 70, c'est en train d'évoluer Au départ, on a commencé pour s'intéresser au patrimoine avec l'UNESCO, la loi 72. Après, il y a eu 1001 conventions et aussi d'autres recommandations. En 2003, l'UNESCO nous porte vers le patrimoine immatériel, la relation matérielle et immatérielle. Et puis après, et là, je ne parle que de villes et de villages, donc d'établissements humains ou du urbain. Donc, par rapport... Il y a toute une réflexion aussi à développer un peu dans ce sens. Et je ferme la parenthèse et la parole est à madame. Oui, oui.
Oui. Je peux commencer? Oui. صباح الخير للجميع وسؤالي موجه إلى الدكتور غضبان بالنسبة إلى تهويد القدس تهويد الضفة الاعتداء بالحروب على الآثار في غزة فما هو دور اللجنة العربية تابعة الجامعة العربية للحفاظ على المقدسات في فلسطين المقدسة لنا جميعا علما بأن لجنة القدس التابعة لمنظمة المؤتمر الإسلامي منذ نشأتها إلى يومنا هذا لم تقم بشيء إيجابي يرضي ما يتم داخل القدس وداخل المعالم المقدسة في كل فلسطين ثم ما هو الآن المنتظر من منظمة اليونسكو علما بأن أعتقد فلسطين الآن أصبحت عضو كامل كدولة ممكن الدكتور غضبان يضيف لي معلومة حول هذا فهو ما هو المنتظر من اليونسكو في حماية المعالم وفي حماية القدس عاصمة الدولة الفلسطينية.
Excusez, in English, oui. Please, in English, because there is a traduction.
Yes. Thank you for the question. I will answer in English due to translation problems. So, excuse me, that the... Okay. I will start with the last question, the second question about UNESCO role. UNESCO, they are doing good job with us. Actually, since Oslo Agreement till now, they created a lot of initiatives, especially for the registration, the survey, the registration, and the development of certain cultural heritage sites in Palestine. They have their policy, they are following their policy, they are doing a lot of job within the prevailing conditions. You know, we have a lot of restrictions, actually. Even they are helping us in coming over some obstacles in Area C, which consists 60% of the land, of the Palestinian land, where we don't have any power. And the power is with the Israeli, in the Israeli hands. So we have to deal there to do something, and UNESCO is facilitating these activities. Now, in Palestine, most of the tradition of the cultural heritage activities up to 5-6 years ago, they are done by private sector. Actually, the government started now putting efforts in this approach or in this role. So the Arab countries, let me say, they are concentrating some of them, but the committee that you are mentioned, actually up to now, their efforts are concentrated in Jerusalem, and they are very limited due to the restrictions they have to work in Jerusalem. But UNESCO, they have a lot of activities. Even now they survey in Gaza Strip and the forthcoming survey in the West Bank, the new survey, they are supported by UNESCO. I think that I have to be so short in my answer. So, thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je ne vais pas prendre beaucoup de temps. Hind Ben Mahfouz, je suis enseignante à l'ISTUB, ex-enseignante à l'ENO. Je suis paysagiste, urbaniste et docteur en géographie et aménagement. J'ai pas vraiment de questions, c'est juste pour rebondir par rapport à ce que vous avez discuté. Je voudrais dire que il y a un problème de rupture ou de non-liaison entre les paysagistes qui travaillent sur des questions de patrimoine et particulièrement le patrimoine urbain et tous les historiens, les architectes, l'ICOMOS, l'UNESCO, un ensemble de personnes que nous respectons beaucoup et qui travaillent beaucoup et qui ont fait beaucoup de choses, notamment pour la Tunisie, mais sur le patrimoine mondial en général. Mais malheureusement, nous ne sommes pas inclus, il n'y a pas ce lien. Peut-être que c'est de notre faute qu'il n'y a pas ce lien, mais je pense que pour résoudre les problèmes, notamment au niveau conceptuel et autres, à ce niveau-là, c'est qu'il faudrait que peut-être qu'on travaille ensemble. Je voudrais dire par rapport à ce que Mme Feyqabjewi a dit par rapport, par exemple, à la question du concept en arabe de landscape, de paysage, c'est qu'il y a par exemple ma collègue Lamia Al-Atiri qui est paysagiste, qui est docteur en paysage et qui a travaillé sur cette question-là. Moi-même, j'ai travaillé sur la question de patrimoine paysage du protectorat dans la ville de Tunis dans ma thèse, mais malheureusement il n'y a pas ce lien que nous souhaitons entre nous tous pour pouvoir travailler tous ensemble la main dans la main et voir enfin un des sites tunisiens, un des paysages tunisiens qui serait classé patrimoine mondial au titre de paysage culturel qu'on n'a pas encore et que par exemple l'Arabie Saoudite qui n'avait pas jusqu'à récemment un paysage culturel qui était classé, aujourd'hui elle en a un qui est classé au titre de paysage culturel, alors que la Tunisie qui est bien en avance par rapport à l'Arabie Saoudite et qui n'en a pas encore. Voilà. Merci beaucoup, j'espère que ça a été traduit.
La dame au fond, la jeune collègue qui se trouve au fond.
Morning, Hudel Abidi, a student, an architecture student at ENO. Concerning the impact of climate change, I want to know how do we evaluate a good mitigation plan to be effective or not, because some of the plans could affect the authenticity and integrity of the site, such as, like we saw earlier, covering a site with a giant structure. Could it lose its authenticity, and how do we evaluate this plan? Thank you.
I can release it.
Tu veux dire quelque chose? Moi ou toi? Moi je voudrais mettre le point sur la proposition de Alvaro. I would like to stress the proposal of Alvaro, that he proposed to create a new document from CIVIC concerning the relationship between climate change and the management of cities and so on, and historical urban landscapes also. In my opinion, it's a very interesting proposal. We have some start points as the position paper accepted by CIVIC in Malta on 2010. It is a good start point, even that the notion of historical urban landscape is not quite developed into. Also, the fact of climate change. because it is about 10 years before. But even in Valletta Principles, we have some principles concerning the climate change. So we can think about, and I think that it is a very good proposal for the next years. And perhaps before the General Assembly of 2020, we can launch a document for discussion, a discussion document, because it cannot be approved by 2020 GA. We need some time. In any case, I would like to point out that the climate change is into SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and we have to localize the SDGs that are concerned about this topic, because there are many aspects on culture, on human rights, on well-being, on etc., etc. Thank you.
Je pense que bon, on est arrivé là avec la conclusion de Sophia à clôturer le premier thème. On a donc une petite pause café et on reprend pour le développement du deuxième thème. Et la pause café, on va descendre en bas et on l'aura pratiquement avec une très belle vue.
City planning, according to artistic and preservationist principles, discusses the prospects of coexistence of preservationist ideals with the reality of fast population growth and enormous building production. It examines several examples of urban development in the 19th century that might provide lessons useful in our contemporary world. The starting point of our reflection might be a claim in the UNESCO recommendation on the historic urban landscape that highlights past half-century as a period when urban conservation policies have been implemented worldwide. Nevertheless, the very existence of the recommendation is rooted in the opinion that the story of the conservation movement is not a simple linear story of sequential victories. Precisely during the second half of the 20th century and first 2 decades of our century, many cities have lost a lot of their traditional urban fabric. Praised conservation measures have been applied just in selected cases of isolated areas protected mostly for education and tourism. The recommendation, UNESCO recommendation, starts with words characterizing our period as a, quotation, witness to largest human migration in history, which means primarily migration from villages to cities. But this migration is not just a relocation of a certain amount of people from several scattered settlements to one central area. The real reason why is the mentioned migration followed by questionable consequences is not the population movement as such, but the population growth. The data are expressive enough within the period roughly embraced in the UNESCO recommendation, that means from the year 1950 till 2019, the world population has more than tripled from 2.5 billion to 7.7 billion. How are these numbers connected to the conservation agenda? When considering the maintenance of historic urban landscape in its broader sense conveyed by the recommendation, we find quite a lot of examples of best practice among small settlements and communities all over the world. What about contemporary large megacities and megalopolises then? It seems much more difficult to embrace both tangible and intangible traditions within urban wholes, where the population has increased, say, 10 times in the last 50 years, and the lifestyle has changed substantially. Nevertheless, industrialization, population growth, and deep changes in common mindset do not necessarily imply neglecting historical layers and shared memory. In the 19th century, when similar changes occurred in Europe and North America, careful planning helped not only to save historical monuments, but also to interlock essential traces of the past with modern development. Regarding the heritage conservation, its exponents in the 19th century are sometimes considered pre-scientific and another time naive. We doubt medieval churches restored in the spirit of Gothic revival, and we are alarmed by the methods of archaeologists of that time. Yet, on the urban scale, we might find achievements that fulfilled the holistic requirements of the UNESCO recommendation to a remarkably large extent. Let me introduce several predecessors of the historic urban landscape approach in the 19th century, namely Athens, Budapest, Munich, and New York. Each of them witnessed unprecedented population growth during the 19th century. The population in Athens was estimated only 4,000 in 1832 when Greeks regained their independence, and 100,000 inhabitants in 1900, that means 25 times more. The population in Munich has increased from 40,000 in the year 1800 to 500,000 in the year 1900, which means 12 times. Similarly, the population of Budapest had increased approximately 13 times between 1800 and 1900, from 54,000 to 700,000. The population in New York City changed from 60,000 in 1800 to 3,400,000 in 1900, which means 57 times more in 100 years. In all four examined cases, modern buildings erected in that period are nowadays mostly considered not only beautiful, but also resilient, adaptive, sensitive to local genius loci, and the patriotic feelings of inhabitants. How did it happen? The ways of dealing with the historic legacy were different in every site, and they are all worth considering, albeit briefly. In Athens, the pioneering law on antiquities from 1834 was at hand. Only a relatively small amount of dwellings survived the independence war. The infrastructure was poor and larger public buildings were completely missing. Otto I of Bavaria, the first king of independent Greece, had virtually freedom of choice on how to solve the plan. First, the capital was situated in Athens, not elsewhere, so the historic continuity and spirit were kept in focus. Second, major areas with ancient remnants were protected from new development in the form of the archaeological park. Third, these sites like Acropolis Hill and Agora acquired a function of focal points of newly built avenues and thus remained crucial for the silhouette and the overall image of the city of Athens. Fourth, according to authorized architects who collaborated with the king, the new development was unified by the height and the style, classical revival, in order not to obscure monuments and not to provoke the aesthetic dissonance. These established rules were more or less followed until the First World War. In Munich, King Ludwig I of Bavaria, father of Otto, directed the people's fervor accumulated during the Napoleonic Wars to the benefit of the project of an economic hub and educational and cultural capital of European importance. The small old historical court of Munich was not affected, with Gothic and Baroque spires, church spires remaining principal landmarks of the city. The royal residence on its northern border was partly modernized using classical and Renaissance revival vocabulary on additions to ancient Renaissance and Rococo wings. In terms of style, this mixture creates a transition between the old core of the city and a new neighborhood called Maxvorstadt, based on a rectangular street pattern and unified by the style and height of buildings. In comparison with Athens, a new element is employed, namely the intangible recollections on the Napoleonic Wars. The streets and squares obtained their names after the places where important battles took place, like Brienerstraße or Arzisstraße. This practice was followed again in the second half of the 19th century during the reign of Ludwig II, the grandson of Ludwig I, when public spaces in newly developed neighborhood Heidhausen were named after the battles from German-French War in 1870-1871. Like Orléansplatz or Metzstraße. So the city inhabitants were permanently surrounded by memories, what might be criticized for the manifestation of nationalism, at the same time expresses high regard to war veterans and their families. In Budapest, the process of building the new capital of the Hungarian part of Habsburg monarchy had not been driven by the king, but by local noble families and the bourgeoisie. Three neighboring towns of Buda, Pest, and Óbuda, originally independent, were formally merged only in 1873. However, the vision of one great metropolis had been followed already during previous decades. The important traces of historical periods remained visible even when they didn't match for the official triumphal narrative, like Turkish baths, simply popular among people. Unlike Athens or Munich, new iconic landmarks were erected, among them bridges over the Danube River, as a proud symbol of a new era. In competition with Vienna, British and German architects had often been commissioned besides locals, and the largest royal palace in the world had been built to persuade the emperor to live here regularly. The last example, New York City, differs from the previous one significantly, since the fuel for its development didn't provide a monarchy, aristocracy, nationalism, or historic awareness of inhabitants, but primarily economic concerns. And yet, even this seemingly unfavorable atmosphere could create an environment where old and new blend harmoniously. The oldest English or Dutch-like wooden and brick houses in Lower Manhattan were followed by cast iron industrial and commercial houses northward, and later on by the first skyscrapers, as well as mansions in every possible revivalist and modernist vocabulary. The unifying element here was not an ideological one, but primarily the aesthetic one. First, the rectangular urban grid of Manhattan as a frame prepared for every height and function. Second, the continuity of visible materials. Third, the attention paid to decorative details, notwithstanding the style and the size of buildings. Well, returning to our times, could we derive some useful lessons for an historic urban landscape-friendly development on a large scale from mentioned examples? We could, indeed, and they are not surprising. The most important is the most general one, namely that the collision between the economical or ideological priorities and preservationist concerns is avoidable, even in periods of rapid development and mass movements. Nevertheless, we all know that contemporary megacities didn't resemble 19th century Athens or Manhattan in terms of elaborated dealing with historical layers. Moreover, the very examples of Athens and New York City show how the desired reconciliation is fragile, since the development of both cities during the last century partly negated what had been achieved before. Again, the quantitative aspect of the number of agents seems crucial for the quality of the outcome. Nowadays, the scale of the population growth jumped from millions to 10 millions, and a huge amount of unsustainable buildings represent an additional new problem. According to the systems theory, the viability of complex systems is connected to its position in a hierarchical order, which means its balance breaks when a sudden change in scale occurs. I'm not sure whether such reasoning leads to an optimistic prognosis or to a pessimistic one. In any case, the 4 examined examples are encouraging, at least for me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Martin, for this inspiring speech and for your ideas about the implementation of historic urban landscape. I found it really interesting. The next one is Elena Dimitrova. She will speak about planning innovations into the historic urban fabric, potential and limitations of the HAL approach in meeting SDG 2030 challenges.
Thank you.
Please, Elena, go on the floor. You are on the floor.
I'm already on the floor.
Yeah, okay.
So good morning, everybody. Really happy to be again with you here for the first time, but again with you. I have chosen to speak about something which is actually work in progress, and I do hope that I will learn more about our own work by your comments. So the reflection line chosen was, first of all, trying to see how the 2 key concepts in the international policy of ICUMUS come together. 2 topics have been announced in the invitation. The Sustainable Development Goals and the historic urban landscape. So there is a need to find the crossing point, the meeting point, I would say. And then, yes, we started by a brief review of the current debate, political, policy debate, and theoretical, and also the challenges of practical implementation as far as they are reported. So what I'm going to use to illustrate some of our efforts to address the challenges is based on an ongoing PhD research project, so that's why I have a co-author here, which started by investigating the historic urban landscape using a Bulgarian case study, and that is Plovdiv and the Kapana Quarter. Where we go then. So yes, these things have been already said. I'm now going deeply into them just to put some focus on several aspects already acknowledged and estimated. It is about the fact that references to culture in the CDGs are scarce and do not sufficiently acknowledge the many ways in which cultural aspects influence and contribute to sustainable development. I would say that probably there is a major weakness of the way in which these goals have been formulated and presented, because actually the main strength of such an idea is in the fact that all the aspects are mutually related, and we shouldn't try to keep them apart. And the second one, surely culture is essential for the achievement of all the goals, and we have to trace the horizontal links. Then going to the report of the second consultation on the implementation of UNESCO recommendation on the historic urban landscape, we find a reminder that the historic urban landscape goes beyond the notion of the historic center to include a wider urban context and its geographical setting, and any urban attribute could be considered heritage. And some aspects going on. It is about research areas and the estimated situation where the most common overall research idea there has been conservation, and the least common one is monitoring. So this is something which has not been yet put into the focus of attention. Reminding again that the recommendation addresses historic urban areas in UNESCO member states beyond those of the World Heritage List, and should be regarded and implemented as an urgent and necessary tool for resolving the conflicting demands of heritage conservation and urban development for more sustainable cities. There is one question raising here. Could we find solutions to the issues if we continue to regard the demands of conservation and development to be conflicting ones, and how we could address this? Some research messages also to be taken further. Yes, the needed operationalization of both the concepts in current urban practice by developing integrated tools. It's easier to say than to do for the effective implementation under specific cultural and social spatial context. Then another estimated peculiarity is that, yes, academic discussion is already dealing with the implementation of integrated approaches, considering heritage conservation and management, urban planning, urban design, architecture, yet a technical process is still strongly shaping ongoing practice. And then one more thing, which was the outcome of one of the researchers reported, that even though the historic urban landscape refers to multiple factors, which include geography, biodiversity, and so on, a simple analysis reveals a surprising lack of reflection about an intrinsically heritage notion as authenticity. And this is, to me, one of the major challenges, because if we're speaking about evolving cultural landscapes, we come to the point where we have to go back to the definition of authenticity, the one we use now. So actually, facing the whys and hows of the process, we come to this, to a situation where there is an acknowledged importance of the issues, yet estimated ineffectiveness of real-life linkages between spatial planning and heritage conservation. There are specific gaps and challenges linking material to immaterial aspects of the urban process and how we relate them and how we use this, and the applicability and relevance of the whole approach under the cultural context of particular Bulgarian cities such as Plovdiv and the Kapana Quarter case study. So it is a work in progress. I'm not going to share here a final result, but it is a research process, which is a project which is investigating the historic landscape as a material manifestation of the spatial and temporal dynamics of the urban process, and trying to conceptualize how this helps. And I'm very thankful to Martin for the previous presentation. But we're looking at something which is not world cultural heritage. Actually, this small quarter in Plovdiv, I should say that the ancient city of Plovdiv is on the nomination list of Bulgaria for many years. Nothing is moving there forward. But anyway, this Kapana Quarter is with more than 20 centuries of urban development, a variety of architectural styles and scales. Nowadays, an area of mixed functions where craftsmen and merchants and lawyers are in competition for space. And this very dynamic development of the context happens in the context of very conservative approaches applied to the neighboring historic areas. This small place have been several times planned to change, several times envisaged for demolishing and then for preservation, but it has been very stubborn in what it has been, how it has been behaving. So here is the center of Plovdiv with all the archaeology and the very important, unique monuments on the left of your screen, I suppose. And the small quarter, there is no pointer, and the small quarter of Kapana is located actually to the north, at the very border of this listed site. It has been very strongly focused recently during the last 5 or 6 years, at the moment when Plovdiv started preparing the application for a European Capital of Culture, and here we go to the hope of Sofia that this could help for a sustainable development. In our case, it resulted in quite a contradictory development. There is a huge success story told on the platform there, and even the Chamber of Bulgarian Architects awarded the development as a guardian of the Bulgarian architectural heritage. Yet going there on a real day 2 months ago, one could see quite a controversial picture of heritage, well-kept and not so well-kept, of closed shops and new images appearing. So behind the success story, we still have to answer a lot of questions about identity, authenticity, sustainability, social justice, and the right to the city as appearing in theoretical publications. And then about what could urban planning do, how could be density used as a reference to sustainability, or height control as recommended in many documents, what about the visual corridors. So generally speaking, how could expert planning knowledge help in such a complex and contradictory situation, where actually being part of this European Capital of Culture has visibly resulted in enormous investment pressures, outside investments, and a lot of things happening inside with nobody knowing how many people do live now, today, in this place, what they do, how they earn their money, and how they take part in the big process going on. So the starting point was actually, after all the previous preliminary analysis, was looking at the conceptual and practical challenges of tracing transformation which has taken part from the beginning of the 20th century up to the present day. You could see that there is a lot of change, and it is a point of analysis which is not to be done here. But as I said, the very urban structure has been despite continually updated, has been very persistent in keeping the major structure of the spatial structure of the quarter. And a number of steps have been undertaken in order to follow, to see how the process has been going on. This has been made surely without having a good archive, because nobody has been interested in keeping the continuity of development and what has been done. So it is this, what you see is here, not about plans produced, but based on existing statistical data, existing images, photographs, and so on, just being able to build the models of the quarter development within 4 periods for the 20th century up to the present day. What I cannot show is some animations of this thing, but anyway, so the methodological approach taken in this case is based on system analysis, and it is based on the historic urban landscape. The idea was to aim for a balanced preservation and development of all the material components of the urban system and the relations between them, carrying the values which define the spatial identity of the place and the character of the urban process. And then the next target was to develop an open and flexible programming code to enable the addition and removal of thematic components when analyzing different development options, and a 4-dimensional model has been developed to provide for the comprehensive visualization of the urban process. And well, yes, I know that all this sounds very technical, but finally the idea behind it, yes, it is expert-based and it requires a huge interdisciplinary effort, which is not easy to organize within the currently practiced structure of research and academic activities. But anyway, it is all done with the idea that by developing such a model and such an opportunity for being able to visualize a long-term development of a place would be a good idea for being used as a tool when supporting decision-making and debate between different stakeholders with quite contradictory interests. So the model, briefly about the model, regards the urban structure as a system of material elements, separate cells, each one with specific features and memory on its previous state, and interacting with others through visual, functional, spatial, and conceptual links. So this is, as I mentioned, supposed to enable a programming that would regard the city as a self-replicating system of mutually related elements. Unluckily, I cannot show the animations. This is the image of the initial urban structure from 1905, with still present monuments from previous stages of development, and it is possible to turn it around, to have a look in details, then to have a look from far away, and to be able to estimate the structure, the urban structure as a whole. There is surely for all the periods such things. This is today's situation, so it is obvious that it is not possible to say that we should stop control the building height, because it is obviously part of the ongoing urban process, this densification, this moment when some part of the city is attracting the interest. But the point is to see and to seek for the relations between different elements, creating the cultural identity and the spatial identity of the place. As I mentioned, it would be meant to provide opportunities for spatial analysis and better understanding the logic of a long-term historic development, which is usually not taken into consideration when we do not speak about listed monuments or listed sites. It is helpful, would be helpful in visualizing the consequences of any proposed intervention for the integrity and the authenticity of the place, and probably helping more effectively a decision-making process during programming and planning and design, when the actors involved are not necessarily experts in urban planning or in cultural heritage, but it provides a conceptual vision on long-term development of the city, and probably stimulates thinking about values related to the genius loci and the values of urban development.
Please come to an end.
I am coming to an end, yes. Estimated limitations should be mentioned for sure. This great variety of typologies, the accessibility and availability at all of the information, the interdisciplinary required, and then next big set of challenges would be probably communicating the model with experts and communities, discussing the problems of the quarter. But anyway, to conclude, it is an experience that brought a lot of reminds and hints about existing challenges, some expected, some unexpected. There is a major task to academic education and research that seems very urgent, facing interdisciplinary research culture, professional expertise, institutional capacity, so that we could have a culture-based, conceptually sensitive, and socially responsible practical action urgently needed in meeting the goal of sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena. It's worth to mention that Elena Dimitrova and also Gergely Notch worked on this most important project of ICOMOS, besides, of course, World Heritage topics about the quality principles of conservation. That is really a way forward. And I don't know if Reen Alatoulou, perhaps she also was in this project. I don't know, but perhaps you too. But this really was acknowledged during the Marrakesh conference as a step forward of ICOMOS. So thank you very much. And the next one is Eleni Maestro, Waterfront Landscapes of Historical Cities and Sustainable Development, the case of Napoleon. Will you speak in English or? Yes? Oh, that's perfect, because then, okay.
Because the program was saying that I am speaking after.
After midi?
Yes.
Okay. No, but no, if FICA has a different program, then we...
They are in Greece. You see an image from the sea of the historical city of Naples. This upgrading will be a driving force for the sustainable development of the historical city of Naples, and at the same time, it will improve the quality of life of its residents. Naples, I have spoken about in other meetings of Civic, is a historical town with a history dating back to antiquity that preserves remnants, important remnants of medieval times, Venetian, and of course, many remnants of neoclassicism after the deliberation of the city. Conservation and rehabilitation measures and works that were undertaken in the city helped to preserve much of its architectural wealth, but led to the overdevelopment of domestic and foreign tourism and leisure, and to the removal of residents from the historic district. You see the historic district, and where is the city in the map? You see the triangle there. At the same time, a large part of the coastal zone that connects the town of Naples with important sites of historical, archaeological, and natural interest. How to see? This is, here it begins, this coastal zone that I will speak you about. All this zone, having historical, archaeological, and natural interest, remains degraded today. The upgrading of this zone will help to disseminate the visitors in areas out of the historic center, and of course, as I told before, will help to improve the quality of life. Here you see also this zone, that it is out of the historical center. Here ends the historical center. This is the coastal zone I will speak you about. This is the modern city. This is an aspect of this zone that has an important wetland, apart the historical and the interest. You see the map of the whole town. The historical core is just this. These are very important fortifications. The island, the fortified island. Natural interest, hills with natural interest, and this is the waterfront, about the very important waterfront. I will speak you about this one. What are the problems of Naples? Excessive leisure and tourism development in the historic center, in this small area of the city. Natural areas, these ones, and not only these ones, but there are many others, and cultural poles are isolated between them. And there is an unused seafront due to lack of design. It is this one, the blue one. We proposed to upgrading the seafront to highlight and interconnect areas of cultural interest and natural beauty that are now out of the historic center. This is the waterfront zone from Nafplio to Argos. And I will present in brief the proposals for measures and projects to upgrade and enhance the cultural value of this zone. Well, this is an analysis of the first part of the area. I will present to you only the first part of the area, from Nafplio to Neakios, which means is Argos, though the whole area that we have studied is also very important and has historical value, and it is linked to mythology also, to the Greek mythology. Important natural elements, as you see some pictures, is the wetland, a river and a torrent, the seaside, and a walk to the ancient Tiritha, that is a very important archaeological site. Sites of historic interest, of course, Nafplio, the historical city of Nafplio, the Palamidi mountain, you see also the wetland down of the Palamidi mountain, ancient Tiritha, an important archaeological site. We have also an excavation of a port of antiquity. Half of it is in the sea and half of it is out of the sea. And we have also an abandoned industrial building in the end of the street. The problems of the area, as you can see in the pictures, we have the natural environment is not protected. We have a speedway along the seafront that cuts the coastal area and hinders pedestrian movement along the sea to go from the houses to the sea. And unfortunately, we have all these garbages in the wetland. This is a big problem. Therefore, we proposed to connect, we are looking for how to connect the beach with the residential zone and reduce the vehicle speed. The road will be redesigned in order to acquire pedestrian and bicycle lanes, as well to ensure a safe access towards the beach. The wetland will be protected, should be protected legislatively. This is what we made a research, what laws are important for its protection. And of course, it should be liberated from garbage and debris. Another point is that all uses taking place on the route alongside the wetland should be controlled, as well as the night lights and the noise caused by the vehicles, because all this noise causes problem to the birds of the wetland. And of course, a proposal for the reuse of this abandoned building, but it is an industrial complex. Here you see some pictures. We should clean and protect the wetland, reduce the human disturbance and the coastal birds, clear the vegetation, planting design. We had a collaboration with people that are specialized in the birds and in the wetlands. We had a collaboration with them. This is a small part of our project. And I will show to you some more pictures. We try to create view corridors and recreational access areas. This is an aspect of how we imagine the place, the wetland. You saw in the pictures how it is. This is that we plan to make for this place. As I told you before, we collaborate with some experts in order to design some light construction for bird observation without making noise and without disturb the birds of the area. And of course, we've had a proposal for the reuse of the old industrial complex as a visitors information center. You know that the whole area has many visits, even if it is in this bad condition, has many visits from experts of the wetland and not only, from many schools. Many schools are going in the area and they are informed by their teachers about the wetland and about also the historical place. We designed these panels that are to create, there are stands of information, yes, to highlight the natural, historic and cultural elements through urban signage and create a network of historic, environmental and cultural interest. These are the points from E1 to E10 where we will put the urban signage, and each point informs about a special thing. The E1 is the beginning of the cultural route. The 2 speaks about agricultural land, because as you see the green, there is in this place agricultural land. The 3 speaks about local production of the area. The 4 about archaeology and fortification, because as I said before, we have a view to fortification, but at the same time we have an archaeological, also the archaeological site of Tirintha. The 5 is the relation of man and environment. The 6 is the relation of environment and sustainable development. The 7 is the ancient ports, as there is the excavation of an ancient port. The 8 is the industrial heritage. It is where the industrial building is. The 9 is mythology and water, because as I said, there is a strong mythology of Hercules. And finally, the 10 is the entrance to the settlement of Naekios and therefore to Argos. All these signage will act with a digital system of information, and that's why we believe that with this decision we will attract the young generation, students, young people, to understand, because everybody is, young generation is very linked to digital systems. We hope that the project will be implemented, because at the moment, unfortunately, due to some political changes, the project has not begun yet to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this speech, and even so you were speaking so shortly. That's really amazing. We have the last speech before our lunch, and that's Riyad Haizad, the Medina of Sus. He's speaking about Sus, and Sus as a World Heritage property is at Savas. David, you tell me if the, I think he's speaking in French, and
en arabe. Désolé, mais c'est ça en arabe. Malheureusement que ce sera en arabe, mais je vais parler en français. Sinon, j'ai une autre en français, mais que ça soit pas... Je vais vous faire... Excusez-moi, mais ça sera en arabe. Désolé. Ok, monsieur Mehdi. Voilà. J'espère que ce sera le meilleur. Voilà. Et hop. Et mettez-moi le truc. Ce sera en français, allez. Hein. En français, j'espère. Et hop, passant. Voilà. Bon, merci beaucoup. Je ne vais pas trop prendre de temps parce que c'est le moment de déjeuner. Alors, justement, je vais faire le passage entre les deux thèmes. Un thème qui parle sur la planification des urbaines et la conservation du patrimoine. On connaît tous la Médina de Sousse qui est classée patrimoine mondial, qui est classée patrimoine de l'humanité, qui est quelque chose qui est un tissu urbain traditionnel qui fait un mariage entre les différents types d'activités, entre la mosquée, le commerce et l'habitat. Toutefois, aujourd'hui, on parle de la conservation, on parle de la stratégie de conservation, de plan de sauvegarde, de plan d'aménagement urbain, mais on ne parle jamais des habitants. On ne parle jamais des organisations, des ONG. On ne parle jamais des habitants locaux de ce patrimoine, qui sont le moteur de conservation de chaque patrimoine, de chaque région et de son patrimoine. Alors la Médina de Sousse aujourd'hui a profité de plusieurs plans de sauvegarde à l'intérieur, au sein de la mairie, au sein de la municipalité, mais toutefois ces plans-là ne sont jamais on n'a jamais pu les appliquer vu la diversité de ce patrimoine. Comme on sait tous que la Médina de Sousse a été classée par rapport aux critères 3, 4 et 5, aussi bien que l'authenticité et l'intégrité notées sur qu'on le voit directement, sans le répéter à chaque fois. Sousse a été doté aussi d'une unité de gestion, qui est en train de préparer tous les dossiers, tous les monuments à classer, tous les détails, y compris, on passe directement vers les travaux à exécuter. Commencer la grande mosquée, l'emplacement, les plans, les photos, tout le dossier nécessaire pour classer chaque monument à titre comme patrimoine national avant tout. Voilà, et aussi les travaux de restauration qu'on exécute. Tout ça, je passe vite, parce que c'est pas ça pour moi le problème du patrimoine. On voit les travaux de rénovation, on voit les travaux de restauration, on voit les travaux de conservation qu'on fait, qu'on est en train de faire. On ne cesse jamais de le faire pour préserver ce patrimoine mondial. Mais le problème, toujours que je pose, et on va poser toujours, les lois qu'on est en train de créer, est-ce qu'on est en train de les appliquer réellement? Ça, c'est la question. Qui est en train d'appliquer la loi? Nous tous, on est des scientifiques. On est en train de préparer les dossiers, on est en train de préparer les lois. Mais les politiciens ne suivent jamais cette volonté de conserver ce patrimoine. On sait tous que les politiciens, pour eux, c'est réussir leur mandat électoral, et ils passent directement à autre chose. Bon, on voit ici, je vais passer vite fait pour voir les travaux exécutés à la Médina de Sousse. On voit très bien aussi ça. Et je vais vous montrer le comble maintenant et le malheur. Ça, c'est l'aménagement de nouveaux musées installés à la Casbah de Sousse. Voilà, on voit l'état de la Casbah et puis les travaux exécutés. C'est pas ça que je cherche. Ça, c'est pour montrer la belle image. Tout ça, c'est pour vous montrer la belle image qu'on essaie de faire, nous, les architectes, les conservateurs, les scientifiques, les archéologues. Voilà, ça, c'est le nouveau musée. Voilà un peu, ça, c'est la plus ancienne mosquée sur la Médina de Sousse. On a tout fait, le relevé, les façades, la restauration, la mise en valeur. Voilà, mais je dois passer vite. Désolé. Parce que j'ai plusieurs choses à vous montrer, désolé, mais c'est... Voilà. Et voilà, on arrive jusque là. Ça, ce que je vais vous montrer réellement. Et voilà. Quand on parle de tissu urbain, quand on parle de planification urbaine, on voit très bien aujourd'hui que la population autochtone, la population qui utilise ces tissus urbains, qui utilise ce patrimoine, c'est elle qui est en train de détruire le patrimoine, c'est elle qui est en train de défigurer ce patrimoine, malgré les efforts effectués par les scientifiques, bien sûr. Mais est-ce qu'on est en train de les sensibiliser? Est-ce qu'on est en train de faire une loi qui est en symbiose avec ses habitants? Je ne crois pas. Je sais que les scientifiques sont toujours sur les nuages, mais on ne regarde jamais en bas pour voir ses habitants, qu'est-ce qu'ils veulent. Ces habitants, leurs besoins directs. On voit ici une très belle demeure à la Médina de Sousse qui était détruite par un nouveau habitant qui a acheté une maison, qui veut avoir une nouvelle maison en béton avec des baies vitrées, avec un climatiseur. Et il n'a jamais pensé que cette maison, cette demeure méditerranéenne qui a patio avec des voûtes, avec cette ornementation, ces céramiques, vaut toute une histoire de l'humanité. Et voilà, on voit très bien l'état de destruction à l'intérieur de cette Médina. Excusez-moi, voilà. Il a un son, je ne sais pas quoi. Voilà. On voit les graffitis, l'utilisation de les nouvelles façades à utiliser pour la publicité, les câblages d'électricité, voilà, la destruction abondante de tout ce qui est ancien. Voilà. Je ne sais pas comment vous vous sentez maintenant avant le déjeuner. Voilà, on voit aussi cette anarchie totale devant la grande mosquée de Sousse. Et aussi bien, et avec l'emblème de patrimoine mondial, on le voit très bien sur la photo, qui est bien, avec souris, je ne peux pas. Et voilà, toujours utile. Et on a essayé, avec l'équipe que j'ai, la petite unité que j'ai sur Sousse, de voir si on peut donner une solution à tout ce qui est destruction abondante et défiguration de l'architecture urbaine, des façades urbaines de la Médina. Et voilà, on voit une porte ancienne en briques qui est délaissée. On a pensé que si un jour on va intervenir avec un plan un nouveau plan de construction, ce sera ça, cette image avec une belle porte cloutée qui respecte les normes de la Médina. aussi bien, voilà, un monsieur qui est en train de faire un graffiti sur un local d'une maison ancienne, qui a trouvé l'occasion de faire une boutique avec cette... voilà. Et nous, on a essayé de voir si c'était comme ça. Ça sera très beau aussi de garder l'authenticité de ces bâtiments-là. Une destruction aussi d'une ancienne maison. Et si c'était ça. Mais bon. Voilà, ça c'est une nouvelle ruelle qui était défigurée pleinement par les bijoutiers, qui sont par souci de protection contre les voleurs et tout ça. Ils ont utilisé les rideaux en fer, sans toutefois respecter cette finesse des portes en bois qui étaient utilisées avant. Et voilà, nous, on a proposé cette idée-là, si on peut récupérer un peu l'esprit de la Médina. Mais quand même, il y a quelque chose de positif. Ça, ce sont les travaux exécutés par la rue, l'agence de réhabilitation urbaine, qui a fait une étude sur la Médina de Sousse et qui a donné cette proposition qu'on a essayé de la réaliser aussi avec la collaboration de la municipalité et l'association de sauvegarde de la Médina de Sousse, aussi bien que les habitants de la ville de Sousse et les occupants de ces voies-là. On a eu ce résultat, qu'on a essayé de se rapprocher le maximum de la réalité et de la beauté du tissu urbain ancien. Et je vous laisse vous admirer ce résultat-là. On voit l'ancien état et la nouvelle... On voit les deux photos, hein, l'ancien et le nouveau état de la ruelle. Et voilà aussi, on voit un peu... ça donnait quelque chose de respectueux, aussi bien les travaux de restauration toujours sur le ribat de Sousse. On voit toujours ça, ce sont toujours les interventions de l'Institut national du patrimoine au profit du patrimoine. On voit, ce ne sont pas des gens formés, mais ce sont des main-d'œuvre qu'on a essayé de la former pour avoir ce type de restauration. Et voilà, merci beaucoup pour tout ce que vous avez dit. Désolé si j'étais un peu choquant pour les images, mais c'est la vérité avant de déjeuner toujours.
Monsieur, grand merci pour votre présentation, c'était formidable. Bon, how much? Pour le débat maintenant, oui. Des questions, Samir? Yeah, I think, please, the presenters, please come to the stage. Elena. Et aussi le... où est Riyad? What? Please come.
Bien, je voudrais d'abord dire qu'il n'est pas facile de poser des questions cohérentes lorsque les exemples eux-mêmes sont très différents les uns des autres. Oui. Et cette deuxième série de présentations est très intéressante, mais aussi comporte des exemples de nature différente. Donc il est difficile de poser des questions uniques à tout le monde. Et c'était un petit peu le cas déjà dans la session précédente que nous avions eue. Quelques commentaires. La présentation par Eleni de Naphtalion était remarquable et me rappelle un passage que j'avais fait à Naphtalion il y a très longtemps, il y a plusieurs dizaines d'années. À l'époque, j'avoue, je ne m'étais pas arrêté, je ne savais pas que c'était aussi intéressant, mais j'avais dîné le long de la mer et j'ai remarqué que vous n'aviez pas parlé de restaurants. Est-ce qu'ils ont disparu ou pas? Enfin, ça, c'est autre chose. En ce qui concerne la Médina de Sousse, nous l'avions visitée ensemble. Maintenant, je me souviens, on ne s'était pas rencontrés à Sharjah, mais on s'était rencontrés à Sousse. Et il y a des quantités de questions complémentaires qui pourront surgir lors de notre visite prochaine à Sousse, sous votre direction, j'espère. En tout cas, il est certain qu'il y a beaucoup à apprendre des échanges avec d'autres villes et d'autres médinas, parce que les médinas ont une spécificité et il est intéressant de voir comment, à travers un même pays ou à travers des pays arabes, des solutions sont trouvées à des problèmes qui sont quand même communs eux-mêmes. Les problèmes, justement, on les voit à travers l'histoire. Et c'est un petit peu ce qui paraît dans la présentation de M. Martin. C'est cette dissociation entre monuments et reste du tissu urbain. Et pendant très longtemps, il y a eu, chez les autorités, dans l'opinion publique, une polarisation vers les monuments. On sauve les monuments, on essaye de protéger les monuments, ils reçoivent une attention particulière et on se désintéresse du reste de la cité. Et vos exemples montrent bien qu'au XIXe siècle, il y a eu des catastrophes. Le tissu urbain, même si on protégeait les monuments, le tissu urbain lui-même évoluait. À Paris, il y a eu les boulevards haussmanniens qui ont toujours un grand caractère, mais toutes les rues médiévales ont disparu, enfin beaucoup ont complètement disparu. Votre sujet n'était pas simple, Martine, parce que vous abordiez l'histoire de l'urbanisme à travers 3 villes. C'est ambitieux, mais la base est un petit peu limitée, si vous me permettez. Il n'y a pas que les monuments médiévaux comme les cathédrales. Nous avons appris lors de nos réunions du CIVI à voir comment tenir compte du passé antique, romain, grec, dans le tissu urbain. Et je me souviens que Teresa nous avait beaucoup parlé du cas de Naples et de l'intégration des antiquités romaines dans le tissu. Plus récemment, sans sauter aux États-Unis, après la guerre, il y a eu des destructions non pas dues à la guerre, mais à une volonté d'investissement. Des investisseurs démolissaient des bâtiments. C'est le même processus qui se continue d'ailleurs à Sousse. Et en France, dans les années 60, il y a eu la loi Malraux qui a créé les programmes de sauvegarde et de mise en valeur et qui a permis de stopper ce type de structure. On retrouve les mêmes problèmes chez Elena, en Bulgarie, mais j'ai été particulièrement intéressé par votre introduction. L'introduction, c'était le rapport avec les notions de développement global. Et ça m'a rappelé, ce que vous avez dit, m'a rappelé des frustrations que j'ai moi-même ressenties à travers des discussions. On a discuté dans des forums avec d'autres urbanistes, des personnes, toutes sortes de personnes. Parler du patrimoine ancien, du patrimoine culturel, n'est pas simple. Nous avons affaire à des praticiens expérimentés, qui en principe ont des idées larges, mais qui ne sont pas des praticiens d'intervention sur les cités anciennes. Donc, ils nous entendent, ils nous écoutent poliment, ils sont très gentils, ils sont très polis, mais après 15 minutes, 20 minutes d'argumentation, quand ils sont gentils, ils prennent un mot. Un mot et ils l'intègrent dans leur raisonnement. They just take one word from us and they integrate it. And this is why what you are saying, when we consider the text that are finally produced, you don't have the feelings of our own practices. We don't have the feeling because it's some word they picked from us, if they are nice and polite. And this is why perhaps we should undertake a revision, as you suggested, of the text and perhaps suggest how we would like those texts to be written down and to integrate the cultural heritage concerns and challenges in those texts. Thank you very much.
Teresa.
Alors, c'est très vite. Je veux faire une question à Elena sur la très intéressante présentation qu'il a faite sur les villes de la Bulgarie. J'ai vu les deux plans de Karpana, 1905 et maintenant. Comment vous avez fait? Vous n'avez pas maintenu les tissus urbains, les plans. Vous avez fait des ruelles complètement différentes de l'ancienne plan. Comment vous avez fait? C'est complètement différent de ce qu'on fait dans la Médina de Sousse. On préservait les plans anciennes. Vous, comment vous avez fait?
You want to answer directly or? Okay, it's my turn. So I would like to have the young lady, which I don't know her name. Excuse me.
Avant tout, je voudrais remercier tous les conférenciers. Et j'ai une, c'est pas une question, juste je demande un éclaircissement pour Madame Belle Anderson Stans.
Eleni Maestro.
La dame. D'accord. Elle l'a découvert. De toute façon, je la regardais depuis tout à l'heure. Je voudrais vous remercier pour ce sujet qui est très, très important. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on a l'habitude de parler sur la sauvegarde des monuments. On parle de la sauvegarde des anciens tissus, donc comme la Médina, tout ça. Mais là, vous parlez d'un nouveau sujet, c'est de réaménager les côtes, le paysage naturel et aussi le patrimoine qu'on a. Et, vous nous avez présenté une intervention sur les côtes. Et j'ai vu qu'elle est un peu, elle est beaucoup plus du côté de la nature. C'est un petit, c'est une allée, c'est agréable. Et j'aimerais bien savoir votre avis par rapport à des interventions beaucoup plus fortes. Vu que je suis architecte et je fais une thèse de doctorat sur le patrimoine, on est allé plus sur les côtes, par exemple, à construire une architecture flottante sur les mers, comme les côtes de Marseille, avec le musée de Marseille, ou bien la Marseillaise qui est sur la terre de Jean Nouvel. C'est un sujet d'actualité que je suis, que j'aime beaucoup. Il y a aussi des interventions à Tokyo de ce genre. Alors, que penseriez-vous, madame? Est-ce que vous êtes du côté de l'environnement ou pourquoi pas on peut agir en tant qu'architecte, mais tout en respectant la nature? Merci.
Merci beaucoup. I would like to propose that Eleni is answering the question of her, of this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Teresa, for this question. I would say that urban planners is not a concept which covers everybody dealing with urban planning. So there are tensions and there are different concepts there in there. And actually what happened in this case, a very wrong and contradictory development, was that probably, luckily, this place has been left outside the major investment interest. There has been a lot of damages done throughout the years, and there has been always some architects and planners staying there, very nice professional community, standing for values. And I do believe we have come to the edge of a very important point. We have to speak about values. We speak different languages as professionals. We speak different languages with many other groups of stakeholders. But if we don't build upon our communication on respect and responsibility and values, it won't come to any fruitful end. Because actually, if we have already come to an acknowledgement of the need to speak about evolving urban landscapes, being with their outstanding value and being probably already inscribed in the list, then that means we have accepted that the outstanding the outstanding cultural value of such places is the continuity of the process. And we cannot pretend that continuity is not happening. The point is what continuity we stand for. And I think Italy is a place where they know how to do it, at least from my experience. So yes, that's why I believe that speaking about education, it needs to go to the basics of education, to the point where this process passes values. It's not about information, it's not about skills and knowledge and all these things. They are important, but it is basically about passing cultural values. And if we don't share some common cultural values, no conservation is possible. And that's what now happens coming to this nice place, because now it is named the creative district. And gentrification is awful. Nobody knows how many. We have been asking with students, how many people live there, what they do there. No, nobody is interested in this. They're not rich enough to invest in new development.
Thank you. And now Eleni.
Yes. Well, I try to answer. We did some architectural constructions like those that I showed to you, some more constructions, but they were in the same scale. We didn't decide, and also we had a small pedestrian wooden on the sea, just to see the old port, the excavation of the old port in the sea. But all the constructions were of small scale for two reasons. One reason is that the area is protected, so we cannot do very big things. But the real reason is that the scale of the place is a small scale. We are not in a city, in a big city, as it is in Athens. Let's say in Athens we have the Elliniko, the ancient airport place, where we will make maybe big things, but the scale is small. There are small towns, so they cannot accept very big things. They want to be more humble. Okay?
Thank you also, Eleni. because we are now 25 minutes too late, and I think Samir has given us a summary of this lesson, of this session a little bit. I think we should, I think we should close the session now, and I would like to ask Faika about the proceeding. We are now having lunch, and when shall we start again?
1.5 hours.
1.5 hours, that means we will start at 2:40. No, 2:40. And where will we have the lunch? Where will we? Here? Not very, very close. Okay. So we had, the beginning was half an hour late, and now we are approximately half an hour late, so I think we did a good job. And I'm now glad that the translation worked, so because this is really, it has to be done. Okay, thank you very much. And we will see you in 1.5 hours.